Did you know that your food choices can lead to more and more medications? It can get so out of control that your health fails because of the food that you're putting on your plate. Today, my guest is Dr. Steve Hughlett, and we're going to talk about just that. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, man. So, first of all, let's talk about your background a little bit. So, you've been a doctor of pharmacy for a while. So, tell me what that is and how that differs from,
Just a
the
regular
guy at
pharmacist.
Walgreens that I go see.
Well, there used to be a big distinction. It used to be just a pharmacist was a RPH, a registered pharmacist. And then once you got your RPH degree, you could go for an extended another 2 years and get your doctorate of pharmacy. But over time, since I've been in, and this probably, I don't know, started 15 years ago or something, all the pharmacy schools are slowly starting to change where it's all PharmD now. So it's all doctor of pharmacy. And for whatever, and I know the reason, like with everything else, it's money. You can get more money out of people going for the doctorate and everything. But I don't think it's necessary. Doctor of pharmacy, originally when I got in, it meant basically that in my mind, I was being clinical. So I was going to work in the hospital, work up with patients, work actually up on the floor, which is what I did. My specialty is pediatrics. I got my did my pediatric residency in 91. And then in 92, that's when I started working at the hospital. And then I worked at the hospital up until I took early retirement a few years ago, kind of after I started doing some more research and finding out how horrible what we're doing with people and with our medications and keeping people sick. And I couldn't stand anymore. So I had to get out. So that's kind of what I did. And so that's the difference. Doctor of pharmacy, it used to be more clinical, and now it's everybody is. So right now, if you see a young person behind the counter at Walmart counting tablets, it's very possible they have a doctor of pharmacy. It's just what they tend to do with it. And that makes it hard, because if you're in a retail setting like that, all they look at is how many scripts per hour you're catching, you're doing and all that. And you don't get to use a lot of the knowledge that you learned in school as far as what the body is, what the body needs, how the body works, and how medications, can change that for the good or the bad.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I remember when I was a kid, we would go in and pick up, the big thing back then was penicillin. I mean, I'd go to the doctor sick as a kid, and the doctor would give me a shot of penicillin, and then you'd have to go get a medication. And I remember then, like, the pharmacist would talk to, my mom at the time, but I was still listening. The only thing I cared about back then was the doctor saying, "Hey, drink plenty of ginger ale." I'm like, "Yes, I get ginger ale." I was a sugar freak, I tell you.
Most people are.
But now, I mean, it's like, if we get a prescription for something, which we don't get sick often, but I had to get some ear drops for my son because he had a bad ear infection. He's had some problems with his ear for a long time.
Yeah.
And the pharmacist didn't talk to us at all. I mean, it was like, sign the screen. Here you go. This is it. There wasn't good instruction there. So I guess that's the common place now?
Sadly, that is very common, because the pharmacists assume that the physicians tell them, the physicians thinking the pharmacists tell them. Everybody is so busy. You got all these regulations you have. That's why physicians only can spend like 15 minutes with you. They don't have time to sit there and explain to you how all the medications they're prescribing is just basically symptomatic treatment, and they don't have time to explain to you about nutrition. And even if they did, they know nothing about, and unless they go their own way and realize, they look into nutrition, they realize what actually heals our body and reverses conditions like type 2 diabetes and all this. They aren't taught that. So, I mean, the things we may talk about in this podcast, or things that I talk, or in this YouTube, or the things I talk about my podcast, this is not bad mouthing physicians at all, because they don't know. I didn't know. I was in school for 35 years. I was not taught any of this. You learn a little bit about nutrition as far as how to do like nutrition through veins, but all the nutrition, even in that, we found out is just all rhetoric. It's just words of people trying to make a ton of money. And that's kind of what all this is. And drug companies, food companies, they make so much money off sick people. So physicians don't know anything about nutrition. They may get one lecture, and even pharmacology. I think they may get 2 semesters of pharmacology, and that's it. So this isn't their fault. That's just the way they're taught. They're more taught about like diagnosis and symptomatic treatment with medications, because drug companies are the ones who teach them how to treat patients. So through all the various ways that drug companies do that. So I didn't really realize that all we were doing was treating symptoms, and the people were getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And now I realize it. And now that we're able, I have helped so many people in the last 3 years, seriously, 3-4 years than I ever felt like I did my 30 years that I worked at the hospital. And now I'm personally seeing people who are reversing their type 2 diet quick. They've been on diet. Some of these people have been on diabetic medications for 10, 20 years, and they can totally get off all their medications in like less than 2 months. Almost every one of them can. And there's a good reason why that is. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and if they come off the medication, then their doctor loses a customer. The big pharma, pharmaceutical company loses a customer.
Yes. I mean, it goes huge, because when you think about even the food companies, so you've got the food company, which is a mega industry anyway. Then you have the sugar industry that supplies the food companies, and the big ag for corn, soy, and wheat that supplies the food companies, and the chemical, Dow and all them, they're making the chemicals that you spray on all the crops that you use in the man-made food industry. And then they make the chemicals that are used to like extract oil out of fruits and seeds that don't even have fat. So it's really just nothing but chemicals. So if you decide to quit eating man-made food, the box, bottle, bag, and can, everything that has a huge label on it of all the chemicals that they put in there, chemicals that our bodies are not used to, they don't know what to do, and it makes inflammation all over our body. So if you say no to that, now you've said no to the sugar industry, the chemical industry, the big ag, and you've said no to the foods, and you actually get healthy. So you've also, the drug companies, they aren't going to be able to give all their symptomatic treatments for you. That's why they have trillions of dollars. When you put all those industries together, it is absolutely unbelievable how much money that's going into this to keep us sick. Because if we're healthy, we're not going to be doing any of that. I'm 63, my wife's 60. We are on 0 medications. Our goal is to never, ever be on a medication. All medications have multiple, like 30, 40 things, like these GLP-1s and statins. They have well over 70 different adverse effects. Very, very, some lethal adverse effects to these things. And it's all symptomatic treatment. It's not doing anything for the underlying cause. So once we figured out what the underlying cause is, now that's why I retired early, because now I know. So now I'm trying to get people to understand what the underlying cause is, fix that, and get off all this medication, get out of this system that has just gone absolutely berserk. So that's why I retired. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I started podcasts. That's why we have a weekly newsletter. That's why we have these digital courses people can get. I'm trying to do anything I can, getting on these awesome YouTube channels like what you've got. We're just trying to get the word out to as many people as we can. They've got to, you can take care of your health, and it's not that hard. You just have to want to get off medications and stay out of the medical system.
Right. Absolutely. And, it's a grassroots movement. There's no, you've got ads coming in from the food companies that you need to eat this cereal. It's the most nutritious meal of the day. You've got drug companies that are still able to advertise. And I've got people that watch from all around the world. And so if you guys don't know this, our country and New Zealand are the only 2 countries in the entire world where pharmaceutical companies are able to advertise direct to consumers.
Yep.
So we have commercials on TV with people dancing around, and you can fix this problem, and then they list 30 different things with side effects may include this and this and this and this and this, and ask your doctor if this is right for you. And people are like, wow, yeah, I want to feel like that. I have this condition, I want to feel like this. So let me ask my doctor about this. Let me get on this thing. And it is a vicious cycle.
It really is. And that, when I was in pharmacy school, there you couldn't, drug companies they couldn't be on the commercials. Then they got on commercials, and they said that at the time they could either say the name of their medication or they could say what it's used for, but they couldn't say both, and then talk to your physician. Now then after that, they transitioned it. Well, you can say the name of the medication and what it's used for, but you have to tell them what the adverse effects are. The problem with that is, as you just said, one, they don't have to tell you all the adverse effects. They just have to tell you, I don't even know what it is, maybe top 5, top 10. I doubt if it's even that.
Right.
They have to tell you just a few of them, but that's why they try to do the old, distract you by they have all these, nobody's going to listen to this. So have them looking at these, this nice, beautiful woman and guy, and they're enjoying a nice dinner together, whatever they're doing, to get your eye off the ball, because they're trying to do whatever legal things there are right now as they change the legal things. Thank God for Robert Kennedy, and he's trying to get this where they cannot advertise on the television anymore. Because seriously, everybody's got to realize the adverse effects, every single medication. You could ask me any single medication. I could pull it up in my little my dosing handbook that I've used for the last 30 years. It gets updated constantly. And you'd be amazed at all the adverse effects that these drugs have. And like I said, especially if you're talking about, the statins or the GLP-1s or everything, they're horrible. They're just horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this before, this is not even a political thing. It doesn't matter to me who Robert F. Kennedy, what side he's on. Anybody that represents health and trying to spread knowledge and get rid of some of this crap that's in our food system and get our people healthier, I support them. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on.
Amen. I feel the same way.
But I saw the other day where he's trying to get a law. If my memory serves me, there was a law that changed in 2017 where the drug companies, if they were advertising on TV, had to list every single side effect. And it was a short-lived thing, probably because some of them could be 5-minute long commercials. And
yeah, definitely.
So if you've ever done any advertising, it ain't cheap. And if you have a 5-minute long commercial that you have to put out there that lists every single side effect, they're not going to do it.
Right.
So I think that may dissuade some of them.
Yep.
But I just wonder how we got so far removed from the Hippocratic Oath and let your food be your medicine be your food, and now we're eat whatever you want, take this GLP-1 drug, and one of my wife's friends, I mean, she's taking this thing, and I'm like, look, you're taking this, then when you are hungry, you're eating Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yep, exactly.
What's going to happen when you can't take it? And not to mention the things that are already happening now that she's having to take other medications for because of the side effects.
Oh yeah, they're huge, and especially just like all the GLP-1s. The problem with it is all it's really doing is making it where you're not hungry. Well, if you're not hungry, you're not eating. So if you're not eating, you're not giving your body the nutrients it needs. Our bodies have to have protein to live. If you don't eat protein, you will die. If you don't eat fat, you will die. We need protein. We need fat. That is ungodly important. That's why, the whole thing with statins just makes zero sense. And I can tell you all about that. And that was horrible. But so what's happening is your body needs fat. It needs fat because it uses it all around. Every single cell in your brain or every single cell in your body is made out of fat, and every single cell in your body produces cholesterol because it's so important to the cell's function, to our function. And so what happens is, since our body needs fat, if we're not eating it, it's going to take it from our fat cells, which is what you want. And that's what people are seeing. What they're not telling you is you're also not eating protein along with it. So you haven't changed your nutrition. All you're doing is taking a drug that makes it where you're not hungry. So now you're not eating protein. Your vital organ, every single thing you touch, your arms, your muscles, I mean, vital, everything that you can touch is made out of protein. Your body, you're regenerating cells constantly. If you don't eat protein, your body is going to prioritize its organs, and it's going to get the protein from your protein stores, which you don't have protein stores. What you have is muscle. So it starts eating all your muscle away because it needs those amino acids. It needs that for all of its vital function. You can cut off your arms and legs, and you're still going to live. So you're body starts taking all this muscle and breaking it down amino acids so the vital organs can live. So these people are losing weight, but they're losing fat, and they're mostly losing muscle. And they're also not getting a good intake of vitamins and minerals either. So what they're doing is when you're on GLP-1s, you are starving your body from the inside out, and you're causing your body to eat itself. It's like an auto cannibalism. That's exactly what it's doing. And you'll see that in all these people on these GLP-1s. You see how they have the really gaunt faces, and they just look horrible because they're eating their own muscle away. GLP-1s are horrible at the dose that the drug companies have come up with, but there's a lot of good stuff out right now, and people in the actual community that we're in that's trying to help people of micro dosing. So they take like a fifth or a tenth of the doses that the food manufacturers, and they have found out with a little bit, along with you don't just do GLP-1s, but the whole thing is we are so addicted to carbohydrates, so addicted to sugar, so addicted to flour, so addicted to all this horrible stuff that's killing us, that is hard, and it's a true chemical addiction. It actually affects the pleasure center of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, the exact same spot that cocaine does. So takes a little bit, and then all of a sudden you get resistant. You have to take more and more, and that's where people are. So they're addicted to carbohydrates, addicted to sugar, addicted to the taste of sweet. And what happens, what you have to first do is, and that's where if you're truly addicted, trying to get you to switch to quit eating all those carbohydrates and start increasing your fat and your protein intake. Some people are so addicted they can't do that, but they found that if you just microdose these GLP-1 just a little bit, along with the major thing is to get them to change their diet. We will give you microdosing on this, but you've got to change what you eat, and you have to prove that you're changing what you eat, because that's the long term. So you really, if you're doing it for diabetes, like I said, I mean, the only reason you have a high blood glucose is because you eat it. That your body doesn't just sit here and make blood glucose. There's no reason for it to do that. So you're stressed, and your body will break the glucose stores out of your liver and put that in. That'll raise a little bit. So if you're stressed all the time, that's horrible as well. Need to take care of that. But the main thing is, if you quit eating glucose, your blood glucose won't go up. I mean, it sounds stupid, but it is that simple. The only reason you have type 2 diabetes is because you keep eating glucose. And when you eat glucose, your insulin levels go up, and then you have insulin resistance. And you've been in insulin resistance. If you're obese, you have insulin resistance. That's what causes obesity is insulin pushes fat into your cells. When your insulin's low, it burns fat out of your cells. So if you're obese, that's because you're keeping your insulin levels high and you're pushing fat into your cells. And the reason your insulin's high is because you're eating glucose. Glucose is the basic building block of all carbohydrates, plant-based food. I am not anti-fruits. I am not anti-vegetables. I'm not saying that. But you can eat too much of those and affect your glucose as well, especially if you eat like the plants that grow below the ground, potatoes and carrots, and the things that have starch, which starch is just great big long chains of glucose. That's all it is. So when you're eating all this glucose all the time, you keep the insulin levels all the time. You do this for 20, 30 years, you end up in insulin resistance. And then all of a sudden you go to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh, your A1C is high, your glucose high, you are type 2 diabetic. It's like, you've been a type 2 diabetic for 10, 20 years. The only thing is we keep our eye off the medical system keeps people's eye off the ball, because they have you look at the glucose. So they give you this medication that all of a sudden you watch your glucose go down. It's like, oh, look, my A1C is better. I'm so good. It has nothing to do with that. It's insulin. The way most diabetic medications work is they cause your pancreas to produce more insulin. So you have type 2 diabetes of insulin resistance because you eat too much glucose. You have your insulin levels too high, and they say, oh, your glucose is still high. Why don't we give you more insulin? They either give you the insulin or they give you something to make your pancreas produce more insulin, which makes diabetes worse. That's why doctors will tell you type 2 diabetes is chronic, progressive. You will never get over it, and it's going to get worse. That's because we were taught that. I was taught that. I was taught that in pharmacy school, in my doctor pharmacy school. It's a lie. It's all a lie. They're taking the eye off the ball. It's the insulin that's causing diabetes. And all you have to do to get your insulin down is quit eating glucose. Definitely man-made products. There's plant-based food, animal-based food, and chemical-based food. All man-made products, chemical-based food. And that is so inflammatory to your body. Sorry,
Yeah.
I know I know I went off on that, and that's not where you wanted me to go. But it's very irritating that I know that people can cure their type 2 diabetes in a matter of a couple of months, be off all their meds, not have any word, reverse their insulin resistance, and nobody's telling them in the medical field, and so everybody's confused, and I totally understand why that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, I heard somebody say that that's the one thing that you could give somebody to make them gain weight 100% of the time is give them an insulin injection.
Yes.
And 100% of the time it's going to happen. That's
Yes.
insulin's the key, right? I mean, there's
insulin,
other things involved. Cortisol affects insulin. There's
right.
there's all kinds of things. People say, well, cortisol is a problem. Well, what is the cortisol doing? It's affecting the insulin, right?
Right, because it makes the glucose get broken down out of the liver and put into the bloodstream, so it raises your insulin. So that's why I say the three basic pillars of sickness is high insulin levels, inflammation throughout all the body, which is what you get when you eat all this chemical-based food, the man-made products. We're all anybody who's eating that stuff, you're so inflamed, and we definitely saw that through COVID. But high insulin levels, inflammation throughout the body, and high glucose levels, because that is correct. You do not want high blood glucose levels, because that does things too. The glucose attaches to proteins all over your body, and it makes where they're not active. So that is true. A doctor cannot get your blood glucose down appropriately the right way, because he has explained to you all about nutrition and what you're eating, that you're eating glucose. And chances are the physicians don't even know that. It's very, very, very good chance they don't even know that. And even if they did, they don't have a whole lot of time to sit there and try to explain that to you. So it's so much easier, and people want a med anymore. It's the craziest thing. Like I said, I'm 63 years old. There was no medication. Even when I started pharmacy school, there wasn't anywhere near the number of medications that are out there right now. And that includes all the ones that came out and was killing everybody. And so they had to take them off the market too, which that happens constantly also. You don't really know all the drug companies can't do all these adverse effects on everybody. So you wait till you put it out in the mainstream where everybody's taking it. And now all the adverse effects start coming in. So that's why they have pre-marketing and post-marketing adverse effects. But a lot of these, if you even like the GLP-1s, if you look at pre-marketing, there was probably at least 50 adverse effects was pre-marketing. So they already knew that. And then a couple, maybe 20 or more came after market. But anyway, it's a mess.
Yeah. I believe that same thing's going to happen with this GLP-1s. The more people that are on them, they're saying, well, they've been used for all these years. Well, but not for just losing weight and being able to take this and then eat Reese's peanut butter cups when you are hungry. Yeah. I mean, that's not, there's legitimate uses for these drugs, but losing 20 pounds for a wedding ain't it.
No, that's the worst thing. That's the worst thing you could do. There are so many adverse effects. There are so many people who are losing their stomachs, losing their intestines, losing their colon, brain fog, all the time. And there's a ton of stuff that's going on with these GLP-1s that are absolutely horrible. I just saw a thing come across the other day. I think they've already been sued for something like $2 billion already just in the adverse effects people are turning in. But
yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if it won't be the largest class action lawsuit in history.
Oh, and it should be. It should be. They're pushing this stuff out. GLP-1, our body's automatically, and I'm not going to go deep into this, but unless somebody wants me to, but GLP-1, your body actually produces GLP-1 in response to a carbohydrate amount. A little bit about your food, but when it sends carbohydrates, your body, your intestines actually secrete this GLP-1 naturally. But it's only there to try to keep the carbs in the stomach as long as possible, because as soon as they get out, they're going to get into your system, and that's going to raise your glucose, and that's going to raise your insulin, blah, blah, blah. And your body knows it doesn't want high glucose or high insulin. But when it does this, one, it paralyzes the stomach, so it keeps it in there. But it also, at the exact same time, stimulates the pancreas to produce more insulin, because that's what GLP-1 is supposed to be. Our natural GLP-1 does. So you eat glucose, your body has GLP-1, try to keep it in the stomach, and then it stimulates the pancreas to increase its insulin, so you get rid of all that glucose that you just ate. But then we have another enzyme in our intestines that knows that so much time, 30 minutes, half an hour after your meal, it's secreted, and it brings all that back down. So it gets rid of the GLP-1, it brings your insulin levels back down, and everything's fine. Now, what they're doing with these drugs, they're doing way higher doses than what our body actually produces. and it stays in there for an entire week, sitting here and producing, it's paralyzing the gut, it's stimulating your insulin. And then you go to the doctor and they say, oh, look, this is working great. I'm losing weight. My A1C's down. My blood glucose looks great. You're taking your eye off the ball. Your weight's down because you've lost fat and muscle is why your weight is down, because you're not eating. And they're having you look at your blood sugar. Of course, your blood sugar is going to be down because you're stimulating insulin and you're not eating it. If you don't eat it, your blood glucose isn't going to be up. So if you're taking a drug to keep your blood glucose down, but then you're eating glucose, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And again, drug companies make money off this because they know that. That's why they aren't talking about nutrition to anybody. They're saying, take this drug and you will lose weight. They don't say it's because you're auto cannibalism where you're eating yourself from the inside out. And that's where we're seeing all the problems, because that's exactly what is going on. So that's why don't take your eye off the ball. It's not about your blood glucose. It is because you don't want high blood. But again, the only reason you have it is because you're eating it. Stop eating it and you're not going to have, you don't have that many glucose stores in your body. 10% of your liver and 1% of each muscle. And the glycogen stores, glucose stores in your muscle is only good for that one muscle. So you only have 10% of your liver. That's all the glucose stores you have. Because what they've done is the food companies have done, and drug companies have done, and all these people, they have made us, since the beginning of time, we've always used our fat for our energy source. It's always been that way. That's the way God made our bodies, because there's going to be times that we aren't going to be able to eat. So we use fat for our main energy source, and then we're supposed to have glucose. We need fight or flight. Bam, we need energy now. That's when the glucose comes out of our liver and we can get away really quick. But you're supposed to stop that, calm down, and then start eating your fat again. We've been made that way forever by God. Now, since drug companies came out, now what they're doing is they've taught us that we should be eating glucose. You've got to eat glucose. You've got to have glucose for energy. That's the only way. If you don't have glucose, you're just going to die. And it is a lie. That is not true. You honestly don't ever have to put a single plant-based food in your mouth ever, and you will live perfectly fine. And I know a lot of people who are doing that. It's nothing but animal-based products. If you want to eat fruits and vegetables, that's fine. It's still natural. You're getting some stuff. There are toxins in them, so you have to be careful how you cook them and which ones you eat and how much you eat. That's all true. And if that's all you're eating is fruits and vegetables, now you got a problem, because you're not getting any fat that you need. You're not getting any cholesterol that you need, and you're getting so little protein. You have to eat a ton of these fruits and vegetables to get the amount of protein you would need. Still don't have all the amino acids that animals need. So again, they have to supplement. They don't have the vitamins and minerals that animals need. So you have to supplement that if you're eating all plant-based foods also. But the other thing is, because you have to eat so much to get the amount of vitamins and minerals that you have and to get the amount of protein that you need, remember, all plants are made out of glucose. So the more you eat, the higher glucose goes. And then you're right back in the same boat again. Now you're not eating protein. So people who eat that do lose weight, but they're losing fat and they're losing protein, because you don't have much fat and protein in fruits and vegetables. And you definitely don't get it in all the chemical-based man-made food. So I look at everything from the body. What does the body need? The body needs protein, needs fat, it needs cholesterol, it needs vitamins and minerals. So why are we telling everybody what they need is carbohydrates? And that's how the food pyramid is. It's all the base. I mean, the whole pyramid is carbohydrates, and the base with all the rice and pasta and bread and all this horrible stuff makes no sense. Our body doesn't need that at all. Why is that way? Because there's no scientific background. Am I going way too far into this?
No, not at all, man. This is helpful.
There was no scientific background on the food pyramid at all. None. That was a marketing ploy from the sugar industry to give to the food companies to try to get people to eat more plant-based foods. Why? Because food companies are made out of plant-based foods and chemicals. So it's all ultra-processed grains, sugar and high fructose corn syrup, and these horrible toxic seed oils. And there's many reasons why these seed oils are toxic, but they are. And so if you have everybody and they know how healthy animal products are and how much healthy you are, and that you don't have to be on medications, you're not going to have all these diseases. I haven't called in sick. Seriously, I haven't called in sick. I think in 30 years that I worked at this hospital, I think I may have called in sick twice. Seriously. I mean, we don't get sick.
Mhm.
When you feed your body the nutrients it needs, instead of putting toxins into it, it is amazing what our bodies can do. And it's not about genetics. If you think you're genetically predisposed to being obese, that just means that you have to be even more strict on what you eat. But people, and that's a whole nother issue, but there's nothing that you're going to be able to do when you're eating nothing but carbohydrates all the time,
Right.
So we usually say have animal-based products as your main meal. And then if you want to use the fruits and vegetables or a condiment, like a burger with the lettuce and tomato and pickle, that's fine. Just get rid of the bun. And if you're eating it out, don't eat the fries. Nothing about the potatoes, but they're all based in the seed oils. Anything you get fried out at a restaurant, chances are it's seed oils because it's so cheap. I mean, it may kill you, but it's so cheap,
Yeah.
and it's everywhere. So that's the problem. So anyway.
Yeah, and even the restaurants now that are talking about using beef tallow, it's not a good quality beef tallow. A good quality beef tallow you can't use for 3 weeks in a row and
Yep.
change it out. Just filter it, and it's not going to work like that.
Yeah, no. And a lot of them, from what I hear, they don't do all their products in it. They do mostly seed oils, but then they'll do something in the tallow. So some of these restaurants I've seen is doing that. So they're doing a kind of a mixture of them. But when McDonald's first came out, that's what they use. They use tallow for all theirs until the food companies came out and say, hey, you ought to use seed oils instead, because seed oils, which is totally unnatural, is much more healthy for the body and cheap. And it's a natural chemicals that our body doesn't know what to do with. And that is why we are inflamed all the time. We have chemicals everywhere. It's in our air. It's in our water. I mean, it's on our lotions, our creams, everything we put on our bodies. There's chemicals everywhere. Some of these things you can control, some you can't, but what you put in your mouth, you have 100% control over that, so you really do. It's just getting the word out and letting people realize that we've been duped, we've been hoodwinked, and we don't have to do it. If we quit buying man-made food, we're making all these corporations go bankrupt, which, you and I know that's never going to happen because so many people just like eating what they have. And that's the other thing. People don't realize how many medications people get put on. I mean, unless you're in the medical field, you're in or pharmacy, you would be amazed. I mean, there are people that are seriously, there are people who are on like 10, 15 different medications. So now if you're taking that 2-3 times a day, that just adds to the amount. These people will bring their medication bottles into us when they come in the hospital because we need to see what you're on.
Yeah.
They'll be in trash bags. Or garbage. What am I thinking? Grocery bags. They'll come in like 2 big grocery bags full of bottles. So we have to empty those bottles out and look at all these and look at everything that they're on and see all the ones that have been prescribed from all these different physicians for all these different reasons. Nobody knows what they're doing. So a lot of times they're on multiple medications of the same thing, just different, same class, just different names. So they didn't know that they were taking the same thing, 2 statins or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. And when you think of all the multiple adverse effects with every single one of those medications, and then when they interact with each other, this is a cha-ching for the drug companies. You give you a drug that just helps one little part of what may be going on with you, like your blood glucose. Let's bring that down while they're making you sick by the way those work. And now you can start taking care of the adverse effects, and it just gets worse and worse. Just like the term pre-diabetes, totally made up. Everything it's a mess. So anyway, that's why I want to educate people. I really do.
How do you even keep up with that, with the interaction? I mean, I know I've got a book that's, I come from an herbalism background and natural healing and medicine. And so I've got an interaction guide from, drugs, vitamins, herbs, what interacts with each other. And I know I know you have the ways to look it up, but, how do you keep, if somebody's taking 15 different medications?
You can't.
I mean, they can't spend a half hour looking at every one and how this reacts with this. And
no, it's impossible. It's impossible. And a lot of the reactions are the same. Most of them are going to damage the liver or the kidney because that's how our body get rid of all the toxins. And our body, we have chemical reactions going in our bodies constantly, thousands, millions of chemical reactions every day. Right now we are. And so that produces these chemical waste. You know, after you do a chemical process, there's waste. And so our body has to get rid of that waste. Or if we take something in that our body's like, I don't know what this is, like fructose, it goes to the liver. Liver's the only thing that's going to be able to take care of that. So all these drugs, our liver and our kidneys are going to be the main things to try and get rid of toxins. And so they're the ones that are affected first. But then there's some that come across the blood-brain barrier, start getting brain issues and then heart issues and blood pressure. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. And when you look at the adverse effects of all these drugs, I mean, you seriously do. You throw your hands up in the air. It's like, there's just no telling what all this drug is getting ready to do to this person.
Yeah. And like you said, you know, the blood glucose, if you keep eating it, I mean, your body's supposed to have a teaspoon of sugar in your blood at any given time.
Yeah.
People
Yeah. If you I know. Isn't that crazy? You take all the blood out of your system and sugar down, and it's equivalent to about 2 teaspoons, about 8 grams. Well, two spoons of sugar. Because when you say sugar, like what we think, sucrose, that's actually fructose and glucose.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to get 4 grams of glucose, which is how much is in our blood, then it'd be 2 teaspoons, because 4 grams is 1 teaspoon of sugar. So that's 2 grams of glucose, 2 grams of fructose. But anyway, that's getting more deep anyway. But yeah, you're right. So there's only 2 teaspoons of sugar in our blood, and we have very little glucose stores. And you have 10 teaspoons in soda pop. And look at all the soda pop, cookies, crackers, everything. Back in 1965, it was estimated that we took in an average of 2 teaspoons of sugar per person per day. That's back in 1965. In 2015, that went from 2 teaspoons per person per day up to 65 teaspoons per person per day. And you think, oh, there's no way. Yeah, we're not eating 65 teaspoons. Oh, go back and look at every single thing in your cupboard. Look at your juices. You know, they tell everybody, oh, juice, start your day off with oatmeal and juice and have this, you know, this energy bar and energy drink. And it's glucose. And for the food manufacturer's side, that's right. The breakfast is the most important meal of the day, because if they can get you eating glucose right off the bat, you're going to go into these glucose waves because your insulin's coming out and then your glucose is going up. And you're going to get sick. You're going to get dizzy, tired in about 3 hours, because that's about how long carbohydrates stay in your system. And now you're going to go eat. And what are you going to do? You're going to eat the same stuff. So by eating their food to begin, they're going to keep you eating their food all day long. But that's not true. You don't have to. My breakfast, when I eat my very first meal, is right around 2 p.m. every day. And then I'll have my last meal around 6 p.m. I'm done. And I'm not hungry. You could ask my wife. I do not ever get hungry. I don't ever get hungry, because when you feed your body the nutrients it needs, you don't get hungry. Your body sends out a signal, because it's like, okay, I'm needing some protein, I'm needing some fat, I'm needing some vitamins, minerals. So it sends out a hunger signal. Well, if it's wanting that and all you give it is carbohydrates, it's going to say, okay, you didn't give it to me, so I'm going to make you hungry again. And so you keep eating again. When you get the nutrients you want, your body satisfies, like, hey, thank you very much. I'll see you again in a day. And that's about how it does. Now, how long it takes for people to switch over to be able to do that, to quit being a glucose burner for energy and become a fat burner like you're supposed to, it depends on how bad you are in the beginning. Some people can do this in as little as 2 weeks. Some people may take a couple months. Some people may take over a year. It all depends. And that's where the microdosing of the GLP-1s is actually being effective, but it's only as they change their nutrition, as they change what they eat, but it keeps them so they're not getting so hungry. They don't have all that brain talking to them about, oh, I'm hungry. That's where microdosing of GLP-1s, but you're not going to find that from a normal physician. You're going to have to find somebody who does microdosing, and there's a lot of people who do this. So one place people could say, it's a website called Revero, Revero.com. And that's a bunch of physicians like me, like us, that are trying to get people healthy and realizing that we've been duped. And so they could go in and they can tell you physicians that are in your area that you can go check on, that you can actually believe, because they're actually into the nutrition and actually realizing that the key is to keep people from ever getting sick in the first place. Let's not sit here and treat symptoms over and over again.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So it's like a compounding pharmacy, something like that, or are they able to do that?
No. As far as, are they able to make the GLP-1s? Yeah.
Yeah, like the lower dose. like a microdose.
They can. Yeah, that's where they get it from. That's where they can make it from. But
Okay.
they can't prescribe, so you have to find a physician who knows that pharmacy and has a connection with them, so they can do it and do it. Like any other medication. But
Yeah.
that's where GLP-1s can help. But at the doses these people are getting from the drug companies, they're lethal. It's bad.
Yeah, that's like, I did a video on a natural GLP-1 alternative, which was basically a yerba mate extract and bitter melon extract, which stimulate the GLP-1 without, I think the main issue, and you probably know more about this than I do, but your body is not supposed to not be hungry all the time. A short time every day, which is, or until you can eat, you develop the fat burning capacity to go for longer periods.
Yep.
But you're doing these mega doses that stay in your system for a week, with a weekly injection versus something you could drink in the morning and that'll make it where you're not hungry until 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
There's a big difference in that. I mean, you can get your nutrition in,
Yep.
from 2-3 in the afternoon until you close your eating window at night.
Yep.
But man, I mean, if it's in there all the time, you just can't eat. I mean, common sense would tell you that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah, I know. That's what you think. And just like you said, you brought up the eating window, as far as that's common term for people, if you don't know, that does, time restricted eating or intermittent fasting. You have a little eating window that you do. But again, that goes back to insulin. That's the main reason that eating window works, because while you're eating in that window, depending on what you eat, and that's why you don't really want to eat carbs all the way through your window either, because you're still keeping your insulin levels up. But if you can maintain and kind of keep it, low carb during that window, now when you stop eating, your insulin levels will finally go down. And so your insulin levels are low for the whole rest of the time that's doing it. And that's why intermittent fasting is so good, because there's other things that go on. I think you've talked about autophagy and stuff, but a lot of this stuff goes on because your insulin levels are low. There's a lot of cleaning process that your body does when your insulin levels are low. One's called autophagy, but once your insulin levels go up, you stop that. So your body can't even get rid of a lot of these, used proteins and all these stuff that come from all these metabolic waste that your body needs to get it out of the cell, repurpose it, and bring it back. And if you have high insulin levels, you can't do that. So toxins build up in your body also when you keep eating carbohydrates and keep your insulin levels high. So anyway.
Yeah. And you touched on this earlier, but seed oils, it's a huge thing. And a lot of people, every time I talk about it, I get comments like, well, the research says this and this and this. It's never been proven.
Gotta look at the funding. The funding. These drug companies and food companies have trillions of dollars that they can put into marketing and into bad mouthing people who try to preach health. There are lots and lots of money in this. So always look at who's funding the study that you're talking about. But yeah, seed oil, the reason, if that's what you're getting ready to ask me, the seed oils.
Yep.
The main thing with the seed oils, there's two different reasons why they are so inflammatory to your body. One, because of the chemicals that are sprayed on these seeds, because it's going to be wheat and soy are going to be the main ones. Corn's the other one, but they don't really use it for that. They mess with corn when they do high fructose corn syrup and all that. And corn, if you eat corn nowadays, it is nowhere near what the corn used to be. It is just solid sugar right now. But that's what happens is when they do this, like normal farmers, good farmers, they know how to rotate your crops. You've got to you plant and then you let your field rest, and then nutrients come in. There's things you do, and it puts nutrients into the ground. What these people do, they use huge fields of this soy and this wheat, and they crop dust them. So they come down and they spread all these chemicals for herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. Anyway, you get the picture. So you have all these, and these do, and there have been tested. These do get inside. You cannot wash these off. So that's one thing. So now these seeds come into a manufacturing plant, and they're grinding all these seeds down. So they get rid of all the phytonutrients, get rid of all the fiber, get rid of whatever could be good in the plant. They get rid of that, grind it down to just this basic powder that still has all these chemical residues in it. Now, when they go now they start going through the processing plant, and the processing plant They put petrochemical solvents on there. They put bleaching agents in there. They put deodorizing agents in there, because these trying to get oil out of, Google it, go to AI, look somewhere up. How much fat is there in fruits and vegetables compared to meat? Nowhere close. There's none. So for them to sit here and try to get oil out of this, it is all chemicals. Now, besides that, the other thing is there's an omega-3 and omega-6. Omega-6s are anti-inflammatory prostaglandins. Okay. So you need those are your two essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6. You have to eat them. Your body doesn't make Omega-3s produce what's called anti-inflammatory prostaglandins in your body. Omega-6s produce what's called inflammatory prostaglandins. And you need inflammation. I mean, if you get a thorn in your body, if you get pneumonia, if you get a bacterial infection, if you break a leg, that's your army of cells, your white blood cells coming to clear all that up, get rid of that, heal that up, and get it rid. So you need inflammatory prostaglandins. However, if that's all you have is inflammatory and you don't have any anti-inflammatory balanced out, that's when our bodies become inflamed. When you look at grass-fed, grass-finished beef, what you want is the good omega-6 of about 3 to 1 of omega-3. When you have grass-fed, grass-finished beef, that's about what you get, about a 3 to 1. If you have a grass-fed grain finish, you get about a 7 to 1, 7 of omega-6, the inflammatory versus the anti-inflammatory. But when you get in these seed oils, these seeds, when you look at that, the omega-6 to omega-3, they get up to like 40, 50, 100 to 1. So you have so much omega-6s, your inflammatory prostaglandins, that you get basically nothing, omega-3s. So that's the two reasons why all these seed oils are causing inflammation. One, it's mostly omega-6s, which causes inflammation in your body anyway, and doesn't have any omega-3s, so they can't balance that out. And then you've got all this other, all the chemicals and everything that they spray on it that your body's trying to figure out what to do. So that's why there's inflammation. Fruit oils are fine. Fruit oils like avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, those don't cause anywhere near the damage that these, they call it vegetable oils because they think everybody says, oh, vegetables are healthy. And again, there's things like that, but that's why they do it. They're seed oils is all they are, and they're not healthy. But anyway, that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Do you have a take on it?
I completely agree. I mean, yeah, who's going to pay for research against the company, the biggest companies in the country?
Yeah.
For those of you watching from other countries, we subsidize our farmers to produce. So our tax money goes to farmers to produce soybeans, to produce corn, to produce wheat, which they can turn into high fructose corn syrup. They can turn it, soybean oil, all this stuff. We're paying for it. And then, our tax money goes for people that get sick and can't afford to pay because they're eating these foods, which, it's just a vicious cycle. So,
and just like you said, we're paying for it. It's like you are voting with your dollars. When you buy all that man-made toxins that's in box, bottle, bag, and can, you're saying, I want you to keep producing this type of food that's killing me and put me in the hospital and doctor's visits and medications. Or you can give your money to the local farmers, to the farmers market, to the people right there next to you. The plants that they're growing. You're not supposed to be eating strawberries in the middle of December. You should be eating your plants when they're seasonal. If they are not actively growing at that time that you're eating them, don't be eating them. If you're having strawberries in December from a grocery store, that is unnatural. And I guarantee those are chemical laden. They've actually done that with strawberries where they've taken from a store, took a bunch, squeezed it all out, and saw the glyphosate that's still in there, the herbicides and all that they spray on it. It is getting into these fruits and vegetables. So don't think they're not, and you can't wash them off. But
sure, yeah, and you're eating that, so they're not. So if it's not strawberry season in the U.S., so they get the strawberries from another country. They pick them way before they're ripe because they have to be transported and they can't be rotten when they get here. So you don't have any of the nutrients in it, that it would be when it's ripe, and you can go pick them yourself from your local strawberry farm.
Right.
They pick the stuff way before it's time. And fruits, if you're going to do the fruits off season, the best thing to do is frozen, because they pick those at the peak of ripeness and freeze them right then.
Exactly.
But yeah, if you're going to Aldi and picking up strawberries, like you said, in December, you're getting no nutrition, and it's just not, you know, the best thing I tell people is if your grandparents or great grandparents ate it, it's probably a good thing. And when they ate it,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
like it's seasonal. I mean, it's, you know, that's important too.
Oh yeah. And that's what everybody says. Like, well, I remember when I was growing up, we had dessert every single night. And you can. That is no problem. It's when you have dessert from the time you wake up till you go to bed, which is what people do, because that's what all that is. You know, pop, juice, you know, we've been through, you know, they know what it is, but we are not supposed to eat dessert all day long. That's our bodies are made that. And that's kind of what's bad now. It's like people, they don't really realize how nice, how much something is pleasurable when you don't do it very much. It's like, you know, you don't go to the beach, but as an example, you know, I live in Missouri, so we only go to the beach maybe 2-3 times a year. Absolutely love it, you know. But if you're there all the time, you kind of get used to it. You don't really appreciate it. Same thing with food. There's certain foods that when you eat, it's like, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. But you don't eat it all the time. But we're so used to doing anything that's pleasurable, do it all you want now. So we're doing everything. We're looking at our phones. We're eating sugar constantly and, you know, drinking alcohol all the time and all these things. And so it's not even pleasurable anymore. So now people are all depressed because there's nothing pleasurable. It's because you're running your own pleasure, which that's a whole nother thing too, how glucose affects your pleasure center. But anyway,
Yeah.
I know we're going too long.
No, you're absolutely right. But, so yeah. Anyway, so I just went out of town and I got your book here.
Thank you.
I was reading through it. I'm about a third of the way done. I didn't have as much time on my trip as I thought I would, but I mean,
well, maybe you can finish it today.
I was back. I got a jillion things to do, but no. I mean, you know, the one thing I appreciate about this is, you know, you can get into so many books, and it's like, holy cow, man! I felt like I was back in science class. You explain the stuff in a way that's easy to read, and used a lot of analogies, which I appreciate because I do too.
Yeah.
And you know, for somebody that just wants, you know, a simple guide to understanding how your food choices lead to more and more medications. But I want to ask you, because I saw the lecture. You've got it in the front of the book of the lecture you did. But talk about how you went from the pharmacy to writing this book, because they're two totally different worlds.
Yeah, that was again, because I was mixed up in the medical system too. I knew that I was taught the same thing all the other doctors and pharmacists and nurses and dietitians are taught also. And I just thought that's the way it was. Well, then they came and they asked me to speak. I did my residency in pediatrics. And so I did pediatrics my first 15 years, and then I became a supervisor for the last 15 or 14. And they called and asked me, the pediatric people who put on this pediatric seminar, we have an annual pediatric seminar, they contacted me. And when I worked on peds, I talked at this annual seminar maybe 4 times, but I hadn't talked in there for like 10 years. And they called me and asked me if I talk on childhood obesity. I said, sure. I didn't know why they asked the pharmacist to talk on childhood obesity, but I went ahead and I said, yeah, I did it. So I put this podcast or this presentation all together, all this slide presentation, everything. And I thought, well, just for the heck of it, I'm gonna go to the nutrition literature and find out, you know, what's going on. And again, I mean, this isn't a backdrop. These are our books, and we read constantly. Once I found out about this, I could not get enough. I mean, I learned new stuff every day. I just love it. But there's a guy, Ben Bickman, who taught me all about insulin, and then Dr. Jason Fung, who wrote a book called Obesity Code and the Obesity Code and the Diabetes Code, 2 different books. And that was the first time that I was awakened to what's going on. So I had to go through and totally get rid of that whole, because the first presentation was going to be like, if you want to lose weight, you got to decrease calories and exercise more, and the food pyramid, you know, and it's all nonsense. It all is absolutely wrong. And so I had to totally redo my presentation, got new slides with all the new information I'd learned. And this was 4 years ago. I've learned so much more even since then. And I gave the presentation, and afterwards I had and this was to physicians and nurses and physical therapists and pharmacists, you know, it's all in the medical system. And they were coming up to me and said, you have got to write a book. They said, this is stuff that we weren't told. We don't know anything about this. And so I came home to my wife about it. Well, we'd had somebody who videotaped it. So she took the transcript from the video, sent it into a Fiverr, this place, and they sent it back all in the transcript of everything I said on stage. And I thought, well, shoot, this is almost like the backbone of a book. I'll just go and I'll write this book. So I had to learn how to write a book, didn't know anything about that, self-published, didn't know how to do that. But then I finally got the book out and launched it. And my wife was like, you're not going to get a whole lot of people. Nobody knows who you are, and you're not going to get a lot of people. You need to start a podcast. I didn't know anything about podcasts, nothing at all. So I learned how to start a podcast. So now we're a little over 2 years. I think we're on episode 147, I think right now, drops every week. But then we wanted to get more. So that now we came up with a weekly newsletter that we're sending out to people. And we came up with some digital courses that people can just sit there and just watch videos. And it's more like we've just been talking about, educated about exactly what food does inside your body and why, what you eat totally affects that, either positively or negatively. And so that's what we're doing right now. We've got the book, got the podcast, got the newsletter, got the courses. And now we're just trying to get out to help as many people as can. I go around, I've been doing speaking engagements at different places, but we just don't want to do anything we can to get people healthy and unblind them from what we've been blinded to for the last 40 years, 50 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll put links to all your information down in the show notes or the description, depending on where this goes out at. I'm gonna put it on YouTube, and then starting the brand new podcast. So you're gonna be the first episode.
Yeah, congratulations on. Oh, really? This is gonna be the first episode on your podcast.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I may need your help on how to get all this out to everybody, because
man, I will help you any way I can. I'll help you in any way I can.
But yeah, anyway, man, this is a great read. Your book, and then.
And I really did. When I wrote the book, that's who I had in mind. I mean, I know there's a lot of physicians and nurses and pharmacists and everything who don't know any of this, and they want to learn it. So I need to give them information to build on what they already knew. But my main thing is everybody who has type 2 diabetes that doesn't know anything about medicine, the only thing they know about medicine is the ones they're on, and they don't even know what that is. So I'm going to talk to those people with no medical background, and just really explain what's going on here. So thank you. That means a lot that you made it sound like other people can understand it.
Yeah. And because man, sometimes I'll start reading, I'm like, man, I got to put this down and take a little break from this. Because I mean, I like reading studies and stuff, but I mean, sometimes you just want something that'll, you can read and actually enjoy and learn at the same time. So,
Right.
One more thing I want to ask you about. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you taking your time with me today. But in the book you were talking about, because I hear this a lot, and we were talking about vegan, and I can tell you, I've tried. I'm a guinea pig, so I've tried about every diet out there at one point or another in my life, and I can tell you my blood work was never worse than when I was on a vegan diet.
Yep.
And you mentioned in the book, because a lot of people will say, well, I don't eat any processed sugar, I don't do this or this or this, but they're not getting the point. A potato chip is equal to a cookie, or
Yep.
even if you're eating whole foods, rice.
Yep.
Get into that just a little bit about how the flours and things like that are just as bad as the sugars.
Right.
You touched on it earlier, but
right. And it goes back to what does the body need? Fat, cholesterol, protein. All plants, when you break down protein, there's a basic building block called amino acids. There's only 20 amino acids. Between all the plants and all the animals, there are only 20 amino acids. Put those together and you make all these proteins. Some of them up to 27,000 amino acids long. Fat breaks down to fatty acids. Okay. All fatty acids. So when you eat fat, you're great. So that's how you get your omega-3s and omega. Carbohydrates break down to glucose. That is the basic building block of glucose. 100% all carbohydrates, and carbohydrates just means plant-based food. And again, those can get totally adulterated like the food companies do, where it's not even real food anymore. And now that we have all these GMO products, our plants, I mean, to have these great big juicy strawberries and great big beautiful apples and these great big sweet bananas, that is not natural at all. If you talk to anybody who's elderly and ask them what the bananas look like back then and the apples look like back then, they were little, they weren't anywhere near sweet, but they were so much more nutritious. You got all the vitamins, all the minerals that you needed. That's not that way anymore. So basically, every single plant-based food And again, I am not against fruits. I'm not against vegetables. Just be careful with them. Eat them like a condiment and everything, because the main thing is because they aren't actually giving you are getting some vitamins, you are getting some minerals. Meat has all the vitamins and minerals in it. Also, everybody thinks, oh, protein, meat is for protein and vitamins and minerals from fruit and vegetables. And that's not true, but you can get fruits and vegetables. I mean, you can get vitamins and minerals from there, but you're getting glucose also. So glucose gets into your blood, raises your insulin, and gets in all the trouble we've been talking about through this whole thing. However, when you eat the man-made food, that really shoots your insulin levels up. So it kind of goes back, when you're going to eat those rice, that's glucose also. Now, the difference between rice and flour or sugar is because sugar also contains fructose. And fructose is very toxic to your body also. That's why high fructose corn syrup is like, what the heck? So the most toxic thing in this, and we're going to make just a little bit more of it and give it to everybody. I mean, it's so ridiculous. But so you've got glucose and everything. Now, some things, plants that grow above the ground, you can feel it and tell, there's not as much substance. There's not as much glucose in that versus what grows under the ground. Like if you're growing down potatoes and carrots and all that grow under the ground, because that's starch. That's energy for the plant. But starch is just long chains of glucose. So if you have trouble metabolizing glucose because you've kept your glucose levels up too high and you're trying to reverse your type 2 diabetes, depending on how big you are, you may want to stay totally away from them, or at least stay away from the plants that grow below the ground, because that's where you're getting your most glucose. So that's why anytime you eat plants, you're eating glucose. How much plants you eat is going to determine how much glucose. Is the plant below the ground or above the ground? That's going to determine how much glucose you have. So that's kind of the difference. Is there fructose like in sugar and high fructose corn syrup, or is it just glucose like what's in flour and rice? That's why they're saying if you want to lose weight, the first thing you got to do, you got to quit all your sugar and flour, because it's glucose. Those are just flat glucose. To where, like, if you have flour crust on a pizza versus cauliflower crust, yes, cauliflower also is made out of glucose, but nowhere near. They grind these seeds down, so you have so much glucose packed in there versus cauliflower, which is mostly water. I mean, they dehydrate it, but it's you do get carbohydrates, and you are still getting the vitamins and minerals that come with plants, where you're not getting that when you get the flour. So that's why, even if you're going to just slowly titrate yourself over to healthy eating, that's one thing you do. Get rid of buns when you have your hamburger. Just eat it with a fork and knife. That's what I do. And then as far as the vegetables, fruits and vegetables, it depends on how bad you are as far as how much you're going to have that. But no one should be eating the things in box, bottle, bag, and can. That's pure toxins. And it keeps you hungry all the time. It's made that way. It's called a bliss point. They actually look, how much sugar can we put in this to make people where they're still hungry and they want more and more and more? It's a science. I mean, they've got, instead of using science on how to get people healthy, they use it on how they can get people to eat more of their stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on.
Yeah, what's the right ratio of fat to sugar to make the people most addicted we possibly can?
Yeah.
And then high fructose corn syrup. I mean, fructose can only be metabolized by the liver, right?
Yep.
That's the biggest problem with it. I mean, you get fatty liver, which is the one of the biggest growing things that is happening to everybody, even kids now.
For the exact same reason, because we keep our insulin levels high, and that's forcing our body to store fat. If we can't do it in our subcutaneous tissue anymore, now we have to start storing it around our organs. Never did we ever see fatty liver in kids before. And I was a pediatric pharmacist. I did my residency in pediatric pharmacy. We never talked about fatty liver in kids. Sure do now. Our kids are getting sicker and sicker. It's really sickening, so to speak.
Well, Steve, I really appreciate you joining me on my podcast and my video. And
thank you so much. This was absolutely wonderful. I can't believe I'm being your first podcast. I'll have to tell Teresa, tell my wife that. She'll think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to help me put it out. So
I would love to. I'd love to.
Anyway, y'all, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye. Thanks again.